Welcome to Pub Sports Radio, Ian Cameron's Football Frenzy, New Year's Eve edition, Thursday, December 31st, and we have arrived at NFL Week 17, the most unique, different, and quite honestly, complicated handicapping week of the entire NFL season. Every year, and I've been now betting the NFL and really been a sports bettor and handicapper overall now for going on a decade, and I can tell you that year in and year out, NFL Week 17 is that proverbial minefield when it comes to handicapping because you've got to factor in so many things that are difficult to pinpoint throughout the course of the week leading up to the games. What I mean by that is injuries. What I mean by that is who's in, who's out, who's resting, which teams care about the games, which teams don't. Are teams already thinking about, particularly the ones that are out of the playoff picture? Are they already thinking about, getting away from the football field? And in a year like this, with COVID-19 and a global pandemic still ongoing, that could even be more of a situation that could be rolling around in the heads of the players that right now are on teams that are going to be outside of the playoffs. How enthusiastic and how focused are they for a Week 17 meaningless regular season game when they're pretty much so close to the end of the season, a season that is, the players are going through going through a season through the pandemic, putting themselves a little bit, at risk. It is a risk to play the season the way they have here in the NFL and in all sports. Are they just looking forward to getting home and getting it over with? You got to look toward these different kind of factors here when you're talking NFL Week 17. So there is just a lot to go through. I'm going to give you two pieces of advice before we start breaking down each game on this card when it comes to Week 17. The first is don't go crazy with high volume. And I am a high volume bettor by nature, for sure, across all sports. And, on a regular NFL Sunday, you'll see me upwards of 10 to 12 bets. No question about it before the game starts. That ain't going to be this Sunday for me in the NFL. We're really looking to tighten the belt. We're really looking to pick our spots, look for good situations, look for spots where you've got good bet on versus bet against situations, and stick with that and really try to pare down and trim down the number of opinions you have on this particular week because, like I say, it's a little bit more difficult than it normally would be. The second thing I want to point out in terms of Week 17 is unfortunate, and this is just something that, and not all of you, I'm sure, think this way, but there are still a lot of people in the betting public that think the team that has to win the football game is automatically going to win the football game. All right? That couldn't be further from the truth. Really couldn't. Must win doesn't equal will win. It doesn't. And that is probably one of the best pieces of advice I could give you for Week 17. Just because a team has to win the game doesn't necessarily mean you are going to win the game. That is imperative to remember that in the back of your mind when you're talking Week 17. I'll give you a perfect example. Remember Cincinnati and Baltimore Week 17 a few years ago? Baltimore needed to win that game to get in the playoffs. Cincinnati was well out of it. They weren't playing very good football at that time. It was a really dismal season for the Bengals. They went on the road, take on Baltimore, and what ends up happening? Yes, Andy Dalton finds Tyler Boyd down the field, touchdown with about a minute to go, puts Cincinnati in the lead, gives Cincinnati the win, knocks Baltimore out of the playoffs in Week 17, and it's the game that put the Buffalo Bills that season in the playoffs. I believe that was their first year or second year under head coach Sean McDermott. That was, I think, 2016 or 17, I believe that was. Perfect example right there. People that might have fallen into the trap. Oh, Baltimore's got to win the game to get in the playoffs. Surely they're going to win. Surely they're going to cover. No. Cincinnati ended up winning outright as underdogs in that game and knocking Baltimore out. It's a perfect example right there. Don't fall into that trap. Now, there are going to be some teams that need the win that are going to win and maybe will cover the point spread. But not everybody will. And you can't put a blanket statement over every must-win team here in Week 17. You're going to have situations where a team that has to win isn't going to win. Pressure gets there. Other teams relish the idea of playing spoiler against certain teams, especially if they're a division rival, kind of like what we saw in that example I gave you with Cincinnati a couple of years ago against Baltimore. So just make sure you're aware of that. I mean, it's just, don't just all of a sudden run to the betting window because these teams like Indianapolis and Tennessee this weekend and Washington and Chicago, Miami, go on down the list of all the teams that need to win. Cardinals and Rams, but they're playing each other, so someone's got to win that game. You got to bet on a team in that game that has to win the game. So that one's different, but you get my point. Find other reasons to like a team that is in must-win mode. Don't just say they need to win the game. They have to win the game. That's why I'm betting on them. That's not enough of a reason. That's not enough of a backdrop of logic and reasoning for backing a team. So just make sure you factor in everything with that game involving these teams that have to win, not just the must-win element, but definitely matchups, injuries, coaching, all of that stuff has to be factored in as well, not just the must-win element. So that's definitely one of the things I wanted to mention before we get into the card, which we will do right now. Before we do, though, Bama Boy, Paco Healy, Boston Nick, Gerald Jones, Michael Hunter. And Michael Hunter, thank you for the very kind words. Happy New Year to you as well. The content is great. Pub Sports Radio, we've had a great year as a channel. We've got more talent on the air now. We've got more shows, more programming, live betting shows, horse racing work with Razor Sharp and the horse racing crew on this channel is so good. UFC guys, including Boston Nick, doing good shows for UFC. And the live betting shows for NFL. I'm going to try to get myself on one of these live betting shows during NFL playoff time, probably. Maybe on wild card weekend or divisional weekend. If there's live betting shows on this channel, I'll try to jump in and appear on one of them. Because, again, I'm not much into being a live betting show participant because I'd rather just watch the games, focus on them, and go from there. But definitely we'll try to get on one of these NFL live betting shows during the playoffs here on the Pub Sports Radio channel. So let's get to it now. Week 17, top of the card, 1 p.m. Eastern time. This game is significant. It's the Dallas Cowboys and the New York Giants. Dallas, 1.5, 2-point road favorites here in MetLife Stadium. 44.5, 45 the total in this game. Now, the scenario works this way. Whoever wins this game with the Dallas Cowboys and the New York Giants is still alive to win the NFC East and get to the playoffs. But they will only win the NFC East and get to the playoffs if they win this game and if the Washington football team loses to the Philadelphia Eagles later on during Sunday Night Football. So that is the path for the Cowboys and the Giants. They both have to win this game head-to-head and hope the Philadelphia Eagles do them a big New Year favor, I guess you could say, and knock off the Washington football team on Sunday night. So that is essentially your path to the playoffs if you're the Cowboys and the Giants. So they're going to take the field like it's a playoff game, these two teams, knowing, though, that they still need the help from Philadelphia to beat Washington, but they're still going to take the field thinking, you know what, we can still win this division. So you should get pretty good effort from both sides here in this game. Andy Dalton, I'll tell you what, he has played better and better. He's more comfortable. He's talked about it, how he feels more comfortable with this offense, getting used to his receivers, Gallup, Lamb, Cooper, and this Cowboys offense getting better by the week. That game against Philadelphia changed the moment Fletcher Cox got injured for the Eagles. Once he went out of the game, there all of a sudden was no pass rush on Andy Dalton. He all of a sudden was able to torch a very, very injury-riddled secondary because there was no pressure on him. And the game really turned from that point on. Remember, it was 14-3 Philadelphia early on. He gets hurt, and all of a sudden, Dallas is just chucking the football all over the place. Andy Dalton's got all the time in the world. And the next thing you know, it's all of a sudden Dallas running away with the football game. So we'll see how the Dallas Cowboys fare now in this game. The Giants have a much better pass rush than the Eagles do. So I think from a defensive matchup for the Giants, it's going to be tougher sledding for Andy Dalton and the Cowboys. But I'm not going to take anything away from the way he's played. He's played very well against Cincy, San Francisco, Philadelphia. These last 3 straight wins, 3 straight covers as well for the Dallas Cowboys during this stretch. They've played well on the offensive side of the football. There's no doubt about that. Giants are usually pretty good stopping the run. They struggled last week in the loss to the Ravens. Ravens really gashed them with the ground attack, but I think they're going to be better suited to stop, Tony Pollard, Ezekiel Elliott here. If they force Andy Dalton into being one-dimensional, I do worry about Dallas's offense being able to maintain this uptick in performance that they've had in recent weeks. We saw Daniel Jones come back from injury, but gosh, he still can't move around out there. I mean, he really can't. I mean, he's just very limited with what he can do running the football. And, with Baltimore's defensive front being so stout and ferocious, it's just difficult when you got an ankle injury, you got a hamstring injury. It's difficult to be able to move around effectively and be the quarterback that Daniel Jones has to be. He is not as good when he's asked to be just a pocket passer. The mobility and that element of his game as a quarterback to be able to move around in the pocket, when he doesn't have that, you can tell it's not at all an effective quarterback. So that's why this game is tough for me. I'm kind of hesitant to go against this Dallas team right now, but I do think the matchup is not the worst, is not bad at all for the Giants in terms of their defense against the Cowboys offense in this game. The Cowboys, let's not forget, their secondary is still a little bit banged up as well and not very good. But the question is, can Daniel Jones get the pass protection and can he connect down the field? We know throwing the football, when he's under pressure, that's where he's had some tough times, and he has been under pressure now in recent weeks. He can't move around in the pocket all that well. So it's a really, really tough game. When you factor in all the pros and cons of both sides for me in this game, it's definitely a game that, and where the number is right now, I believe Dallas deserves to be, maybe the slightest of favorites, which they currently are. So with the number being 1.5, 2, I don't really like the either side at this number. I think it's one of those situations where if this number were to go up to -3 on Dallas by kickoff, then I'd be interested in the Giants at that number a little bit, +3. But where it is right now, not so much. I think it's going to be tougher for Dallas offensively here, though. Maybe you take a look at their team total under. That's some way to look at it, because you don't want to necessarily have to, if you think Dallas's offense is going to struggle a bit more in this game, and I think they will against the Giants defense, but I don't know what the Giants offense is going to do with Daniel Jones still hobbled. So maybe the Dallas team total under, you isolate that. You don't have to worry about what the Giants offense does against the Dallas defense. Maybe that's a betting option that makes some sense to me, looking team total under on the Cowboys. Next up, we've got Pittsburgh Steelers taking on the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland 9-point home favorites, up to 10 in some spots, 42 the total in this game. It's just been a runaway freight train of line movement on the Cleveland side here, and I'm not part of it. You're not going to see me laying 9-10 with Cleveland in this game. Now, I'm not going to be on Pittsburgh likely either. We know Mike Tomlin's sitting guys down. We know Big Ben's not playing. We know Mason Rudolph is. We know a lot of the key starters or a couple at least on both sides of the football. He hasn't said and divulged specifics as to who exactly is not going to be in this game for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But what we do know is they're happy with being division champions. They clinched the division last week with that comeback win against the Indianapolis Colts. And now they're just fine saying, you know what, we've won the division. If we end up the 2 seed, so be it. If we end up the 3 seed, so be it. It's not that significant to Pittsburgh, whether they're the 2 seed or the 3 seed. So we'll have to wait and see on that. Of course, it all depends on what Buffalo does. Buffalo beats Miami. Pittsburgh's definitely the 3 seed. The only way Pittsburgh can be the 2 seed is if they beat Cleveland and Buffalo loses to Miami. So definitely we know Ben Roethlisberger not going to play. Mason Rudolph is. Mason Rudolph's been kind of disappointing. I thought this guy had some glimmer of hope at the NFL level. Hasn't been the case so far. The Steelers, look, they definitely had their struggles. They lost to Washington first game, lost to Buffalo. Lost to Cincinnati, of course, which was the really, really shocking loss for them. We'll have to wait and see how they fare here. But I liked what I saw out of the offense. We finally saw the deep ball of Ben Roethlisberger come back last week. Now, I know he's not in this game, but it'll be interesting to see if Mason Rudolph, tries to stretch the field here, try to make plays. I think it is ridiculous to me, guys, ridiculous that the Pittsburgh Steelers have these great receivers, Juju Smith-Schuster, Chase Claypool, Deontay Johnson, all of these guys that can make big plays, James Washington, all of these guys that can make big plays down the field. And yet Ben Roethlisberger, for weeks on end until the second half against the Colts when they got down, decided we're going to only do short passing routes and a short passing game. To me, that was just absolutely idiotic. I mean, you've got these great receivers who are great at, gaining separation from the opposing secondary, and they just didn't use the skill set of these receivers to their greatest ability. And finally, we saw that from the Steelers in the second half against the Colts last week. On the other side, you've got Cleveland, who had just had that really rough day against the Jets. Baker Mayfield really owning the loss for Cleveland, saying he was terrible, saying he's got to protect the ball. I think he was too hard on himself because, again, you're talking about Jarvis Landry, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Rashard Higgins, the three most productive wide receivers on this Cleveland team, out of the lineup all of a sudden because of the COVID-19 issues with Cleveland last week. And they were already down Odell Beckham, who's been out for several weeks. So I think it's a situation where if you're Baker Mayfield, I respect the fact that as a leader, you're taking the responsibility for the loss last week against the Jets. And yeah, he did fumble a couple of times, but I don't know what you expect him to do through the passing game when you have so much of your key weapons out of action here for this Browns team. So it'll be interesting to see whether or not, they get all of these receivers back. Let's not forget that. His receiving targets, COVID protocols, I think they're hoping at this point that they're going to be able to get most, if not all, these guys back, but we'll have to wait and see. Regardless of who's in and who's out for Cleveland, this is not going to be a spot where I'm laying points with Cleveland. First of all, there's a tax with Pittsburgh now resting some starters. And second of all, this is pressure for a franchise that hasn't won big games in forever. Let's see, needing to win and to just reinforce their spot in the postseason. Can they get the job done here in this game? Rise up to the pressure that they're going to be feeling. We'll have to wait and see on that. Alex Ramirez saying under. Yeah, the under probably can get there in this game. Again, I want to wait and see what we're looking at here with the receivers for the Cleveland Browns. We don't know if the Steelers, how many starters on defense, are going to be able to play in this game. We'll have to wait and see on that. It says, so again, the NFL just did a terrible job screwing over the Browns a little bit with the receivers being suddenly inactive yesterday or last week against the Jets. We'll have to wait and see now. Assuming everyone's back, the Browns offense should work better, but it's a question of what are you going to get from the Steelers offense? And I think how many points Cleveland puts up is going to be directly correlated to who's exactly going to be in, who's exactly going to be out for Pittsburgh on defense. Pittsburgh does have a lot of depth on defense. So even if, Cam Hayward and some other guys on that defensive front are out, they've got some ability to fill those spots pretty good. But it's a really tough game. I mean, obviously, you would expect Cleveland to win, but could this be Cincinnati-Baltimore from a few years ago, the sequel, where Pittsburgh on the road shocks Cleveland and wins the game outright, even with guys resting? And I wouldn't rule that out. I really wouldn't. I think this game there could be a lot of different outcomes here. Cleveland could win a close game. Cleveland could run away with it and win by double digits, and they could lose outright. I think any of those three possibilities would not be a complete shock to me. So it's a lot of variance in this game in terms of what could possibly happen. It's a pass for me. It's not a game I'm going to be expecting to be betting this Sunday. Jets and Patriots, New England -3, total 40. I know the number's taken a big drop down. This is a play for me. I like the Jets. I got them at +4. It's down to +3 right now. Two different schools of thought coming into this game. You're not seeing any life, passion, energy from New England, just a lethargic, brutal blowout loss to the Buffalo Bills on Monday Night Football. If you're the Jets, you've already ruined your chances at the number 1 overall draft pick. You're not going to get Trevor Lawrence now. now that you've won 2 games in a row against the Rams and the Browns. You might as well keep trying. You might as well keep putting your best effort out there if you're the New York Jets. Why not? And you know what? Sam Darnold is playing like a guy that's trying to tell the franchise, I don't want you drafting another quarterback. This is still going to be my team. I want it to be my team. I'm going to show you that it deserves to continue to be my team. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if he's shown enough yet to deserve it. Now, he has played really well the last 2 weeks, Sam Darnold. The win against the Rams, a very, very good defense, top 5 defense in the NFL. And he played really well in that game. He was very strong as well last week against the Browns. And you're seeing him be able to make plays mostly because you're seeing all of a sudden he's got some receivers. You know, there was times this year where Perriman was banged up and out of the lineup and not in there. Crowder, the same thing. He's finally got everybody on this receiving core healthy and making plays. And it's made a difference for the Jets offense, which has suddenly shown you quite a bit. Denzel Mims. How about Braxton Berrios? The way he stepped up, the receiver out of Miami, the Hurricanes, the last couple of games. So things are clicking right now for this Jets offense. And look, you got one team that's playing hard down the stretch, and New England looks like they've tapped out. Honestly, they really have. Cam Newton benched again versus the Bills. Jarrett Stidham having to finish that game. He wasn't any better. The offense is just completely in shambles right now. The defense is even, they've got injuries. Stephon Gilmore, not only the best cornerback for the Patriots, maybe the best player overall on the defense, didn't play last week. They lost a couple others that are banged up and may not play on the defense for the Patriots here. So this bet makes sense to me. Jets plus the points. Wouldn't surprise me to see them win their 3rd straight game to end the season. There's now no reason to hold anything back. You're not tanking anymore. The tanking experiment failed. You're not getting the number 1 pick. You're playing good. Players seem to want to win. Adam Gase seems to, want to win. He obviously wants to win, even if he's not coming back. And I think he knows he's not coming back next year, but he still wants to win. He's giving you trick plays and gimmick plays like the one he drew up last week in the first quarter against Cleveland. He's coaching like a guy that, wants to win, and I think kind of wants to screw the franchise, to be honest with you. We'll show you, you're going to fire me. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to keep you from getting that number 1 overall pick. I'm going to scheme. I've been a horrible coach for my entire tenure with the Jets, but now that I'm got 1 foot out the door, and I'm going to just completely circumvent your chances of getting the number 1 overall pick. I think there's that logic with Adam Gase. And of course, if you're some of these players, you know that there could be some roster upheaval in the offseason. What the hell is it good to you to tank, for Trevor Lawrence? You may not even be on this team to experience Trevor Lawrence after this year. So the Jets, have won the last 2, certainly capable of winning this game in my mind. I like the Jets plus the points against the Patriots. We got Minnesota, Detroit. Minnesota, 6.5-point road favorites, 54 the total. A lot of money on Minnesota, and I guess they're the lesser of 2 evils here in this game. Detroit, look, they got just completely destroyed by Tampa Bay last Saturday. Matt Stafford hurt, David Blau and Chase Daniel had to take over. Both of them were awful in that game. I don't want Detroit, flat out. There's no way I could back the Lions here. But I can't say I'm in love with laying a 6.5, 7 spot on the road with this Minnesota team. They're also playing out the string, playing for exercise. They're not going to the playoffs either. So this is just a game I'd rather stay away from it. Total's really high, 54. Minnesota's defense, look, against New Orleans, that was embarrassing. I know they've got Eric Kendricks and a couple of key players out on that defensive side of the football. Xavier Rhodes has been banged up. I know they've had some injuries on that defensive side of the football, the Vikings, but boy, oh boy, to see them just get they were hideous defensively. That's the only word I could come up with for their performance against the New Orleans Saints last week. That's an issue. And I understand for that reason, the total being where it is. I just think, I don't know what we're going to get from the Lions offensively, assuming Stafford's a no-go once again this week against the Vikings with that rib injury. So, I don't expect him to play meaningless week 17 game. It's probably going to be either Chase Daniel or David Blau again. The Vikings, 8 defensive starters, by the way, was the number of starters on that side of the ball that missed the game against the Saints. So, yeah, it is a really, really tough go. They're ravaged at cornerback. Linebacking core has cluster injuries for Minnesota. That's a problem here. Kenny Golladay actually might even return. I don't know why they'd play him. I mean, it's week 17. Stafford's not going to play. I mean, I'm shocked that they would maybe bring Kenny Golladay back for this game against Minnesota. But maybe a slight lean to the over, but I just don't know if Detroit's going to put up enough, even against an injury-riddled Minnesota defense. On the flip side, Cousins and the Vikings offense should score a bunch of points against this Detroit defense. But again, the Tampa-Detroit game last week, total there was 54. What did the game land? 54. I could see this game falling right around this number. It's hard to go over 54 given the circumstances of the quarterback spot for Detroit. So it's a slight lean to the over, but nothing more than that for me in that game. Atlanta, Tampa Bay. We've got the Buccaneers 6.5, 7-point home favorites here. 50.5 the total in this one. I think this particular game is one where I'd look to Tampa Bay. I know Atlanta's been feisty. I mean, you saw them almost beat Kansas City last week on the road at Arrowhead Stadium. Very impressive performance, valiant effort from the Atlanta Falcons in that game. I give them credit for it. But I don't know if they can turn around from that loss and come back strong here. Really heartbreaking loss. For a team that is out of the playoffs, there's going to be some changes to this roster in the offseason for the Atlanta Falcons. But boy, they gave it one big-time college try last week against the defending Super Bowl champions to battle the way they did and continually come up big in the red zone on defense against the Chiefs and to just hang in there, have a chance to win it, and then just fall short. And, of course, Young Ho Koo, of all times to finally miss a field goal, misses what would have been the game-tying field goal last week against the Chiefs. And next thing you know, they fall just short. I don't know if there's a bounce back from Atlanta following that kind of loss here. So last week against Kansas City. So we'll have to wait and see. Now, the Bucs didn't move the football very well in the first half against Atlanta in the first meeting between these two teams. And, Atlanta was bottling up Patrick Mahomes last week. You have to give them credit for that. Their defense on him was very, very strong. You got to give him credit for that. But I think Tampa Bay probably is going to right the ship offensively against Atlanta, at least for the full game. Then Tampa Bay figured out Atlanta in the second half a few weeks ago, and Atlanta had no answers for Tom Brady and that Bucs offense in the first half. Tampa Bay really made a pass protection type of adjustment in the second half against Atlanta, and all of a sudden Brady had a clean pocket. It was one clean pocket after another in the second half against Atlanta a few weeks ago, and he was finding his receivers down the field. I think Tampa Bay kind of solved this Atlanta defense. They're coming off just an incredibly confidence-inducing performance, albeit against Detroit. Bad defense, injury-riddled, but they did what they should have done. They put up a big number. They got Brady some rest. I think he's going to have a big day here against this Atlanta defense. On the flip side, you've got the Falcons offense. They were able to move the football a little bit against Tampa in the first half, weren't able to follow it up in the second half. Julio Jones didn't play in that game. Calvin Ridley, Russell Gage stepped up with big games for Matt Ryan in the passing game, and then the pressure amped up for Tampa Bay, and that was that. We'll have to wait and see. This offensive line for Atlanta's got injuries here coming into this game, and Tampa Bay can get a pass rush from their front seven, and that could be an issue here. Again, Ryan was under pressure a lot in the second half against Kansas City last week, battling now with offensive line injuries coming into this game. I worry about Atlanta's ability to protect Ryan, and obviously he's always been a quarterback that needs pass protection. He's not a mobile quarterback, but especially now at the older age that he's at, the twilight of his career, it's even more imperative now for him to get pass protection. He could be down 2 starting offensive linemen. That could be a big problem here against one of the better defensive fronts in the NFL. That could be a big-time issue going up against Tampa here. I think as long as this number stays 6.5 where it is right now, you can lay it with Tampa. You can put Tampa in a teaser. I do think they win the football game. That would be the way I would look. Tampa in a teaser, lean as well, -6.5 here on the Bucks. Next up, Baltimore, Cincinnati. Obviously, Baltimore 12-point favorites here, 44.5 the total in this game. Baltimore Ravens, Lamar Jackson has definitely played well. Baltimore's peaking, playing great football now at the right time of season. No question. They have found it, the Baltimore Ravens, and you give them credit. They're playing their best football when they've needed it. They've gotten the COVID-19 issues behind them finally going into this game, going into this week. That's a good sign for this team. We'll have to wait and see if they can build on it, but it has been a very, very good run here for the Baltimore Ravens since they finally started to get healthy on both sides of the football, and you're seeing the impact of that going into this game here against the Cincinnati Bengals. Definitely a Baltimore team that is rolling now, running the football well. Even Lamar Jackson is starting to even make some plays throwing the ball, which is very, very good to see. 4 straight wins, 4 straight point spread covers for the Baltimore Ravens. Now, granted, the schedule, Dallas, Jacksonville, 2 of those wins. They did have the Cleveland win, that wild 47-42 win, but I think what's significant is they've got the offense playing well right now and the defense as well, getting healthier, playing better as well on that side of the football. The Jaguars and Giants, it certainly didn't do much to stop Lamar Jackson. The Bengals probably aren't going to be able to do much to slow him down either. That's an issue. The linebacking core is brutal for Cincinnati. And if you don't have a good linebacking group, that's a bad matchup against Lamar Jackson and the style of offense the Ravens have. You've got to be strong at linebacker against mobile quarterbacks, especially ones that run and run the football from the quarterback spot as much as Lamar Jackson does. That's going to be a huge day. This is one where you look at Raven rushing props. Jackson could have a big day. Dobbins and the running backs there could have a big day as well for the Ravens. The pass rush for Cincinnati is suspect. Let's not forget, Cincinnati got shredded by Houston last week. That defense not very good in the game. Now, they won because Houston's defense might even be worse than Cincinnati's, but the Bengals offense got lit up last week, or Bengals defense, I should say, got lit up last week by Houston. That's a problem. And Houston's a one-dimensional offense as well. They don't run the football, and they just absolutely carved up Cincinnati. That's an issue here. Cincinnati's offense played well last week. I'll give them that, no question. They played very well on that side of the football. Brandon Allen, I'll give him credit. Outstanding performance. Now, Houston's defense stinks, and they're injury-riddled, and they had lots of starters out. And again, they're not a good defense. But Brandon Allen played well, and T. Higgins made some big plays down the field in the receiving game. And the Ravens still have some issues in the secondary. Jimmy Smith's been banged up for a while. Marcus Peters, he's also a guy that's been battling some injuries lately for Baltimore. He's back on the injury report and questionable. I think there's going to be some plays made by Cincinnati. I like the over in this game here between the Ravens and the Bengals. Total right now at 44 in this game. I think we can get up and over that number. I think we can get Baltimore to get to 28, 31. And I think you can get at least 14, 17, hell, maybe even 21 out of Cincinnati here in this game. I don't want to lay the 12. I would lean Baltimore. I just don't want to lay that much on the road in this spot with the Ravens. But I do like the over here, 44 in this game. I think Brandon Allen and the Bengals can do just enough, and then we can get Baltimore to get to 28-31. Cincinnati can score the rest, and the game can go up and over the total. Ron Crawford, thank you for joining us. Hope you're doing well. Happy New Year to you as well, my friend. Next up, we've got Miami Buffalo. Buffalo, 3-point home favorites here, 43 the total. It opened 48 down to 43. Buffalo is definitely resting starters, no question. People are on to that. Buffalo opened 5.5-point favorites now, down to 3 here in this game against the Dolphins. Certainly for Miami, we know lots at stake here. I would expect a situation here where you're going to see Buffalo starters. Now, Sean McDermott hasn't said exactly the plan. I don't think there's some starters I think that might play a half. I don't think many of the starters are going to play the full game. I'm sure with Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, Cole Beasley, maybe Singletary and or Moss, the running backs for this Bills team. You're going to see them maybe in only for a quarter and a half. Again, all of this information is still very much up in the air, but yeah, Buffalo to me is probably going to give their key starters at least some kind of rest, some kind of break here at some point during this game tonight or during this game on Sunday. It's just a question of how long are those starters in the game. Miami, we know what's at stake for them. It is obviously must-win territory for them, trying to cement their playoff spot. And quarterback, Tua Tagovailoa, can he bounce back? Because remember, he didn't play well against Las Vegas last week. It was Ryan Fitzpatrick to the rescue for the Miami Dolphins against the Las Vegas Raiders. And that tells you all you need to know about the season Las Vegas has had. The way they lost that game, we go down the field, we take the lead, we think we're going to win the game. There's only 40 seconds left. Las Vegas has no timeouts. Ryan Fitzpatrick gets hit as he throws. They jerk the face mask. And because the ball is so underthrown because he got hit, the receiver for Miami just waiting there, makes the catch, gets 2 feet down, gets out of bounds, stops the clock, tack on the 15-yard face mask penalty, and already Miami in one play is in field goal range. Unbelievable. Unreal. That's Las Vegas Raider football this year. Frustrating. They've lost so many games in just brutal fashion like that. And Miami ends up getting the game-winning field goal to keep their playoff hopes alive and eliminate the Las Vegas Raiders. This is a game I want no part of because this is pressure now on Miami, all right? And even if Buffalo is sitting a couple of guys, they're rolling right now. They really are. And Matt Barkley, if you see him at quarterback for Buffalo, the backup, he has shown the ability to play and move the ball at times in the past. So it's dangerous for Miami. I get it, the Bills don't have as much at stake here. I get it, the Bills could rest players here in this game. No doubt, I expect them to. But this is pressure for Miami, and this is not a shoe-in by any stretch of the imagination for them to go to Buffalo here. And by the way, warm weather team going to Buffalo for a late December game, and it's probably going to be in the minus barely 32 Fahrenheit, low 30s, maybe even high 20s in terms of degrees Fahrenheit in Buffalo for this game for Miami. And you know what stands out to me, guys? Maybe this is just me reading too much into the intangibles element of this game. But remember Miami went to Denver? It was pretty cold that day in Denver, and they had a terrible performance. They didn't play well at all. And it was probably Tua Tagovailoa's worst game since he's been the starting quarterback of the Miami Dolphins. It's either that or the Las Vegas game last week, but he didn't play well. He did not play well in those elements. These are the same kind of weather elements that he's going to be dealing with here in Buffalo on Sunday. That concerns me here. So, again, Miami's got a lot more at stake. Certainly, I would expect them to play like it, but doesn't guarantee a win. And now that it's down to -3, if you got Miami before that, you probably locked in a solid number, and you got the best of it. You're going to get good closing line value. But now that it's down to -3, no, I would not recommend the Miami side here in this one. Same with the total. It's just gone down to a point now where 43 can sometimes get games over the total in the NFL of 43 by accident. So it's a pass for me when it comes to the Dolphins and the Bills. All right, the rest of the games on Sunday are the late games, 4 p.m. Eastern. We'll start with Jacksonville, Indianapolis. We've got Indy 14-point home favorites here, 50 the total in this game. Jacksonville decided to play hard, play strong for a half against Chicago. I don't know what that was in the second half for them last week against the Chicago Bears, but they were absolutely brutal in that second half against the Bears, and that's definitely a concern going into this one. We'll have to see how Jacksonville responds here, but certainly, yeah, that's a good point, Michael. Shame on me for missing that. Fitzpatrick, tested positive for COVID-19, won't play. So, well, we knew it was Tua already going to start in this game, but Brian Flores said it early in the week that no change was going to happen. Fitzpatrick came in for Tua last week against Las Vegas, but they were going to go right back to Tua Tagovailoa starting against Buffalo. So it's just that they won't have Fitzpatrick available to back him up for this game on Sunday against the Bills. But getting back to Jacksonville, yeah, they had a great first half, and then the second half did nothing. The offense got shut down. The defense got absolutely ripped apart by Mitch Trubisky and the Bears offense. I don't know what we're going to get from Jacksonville here today, but the way they just completely flatlined in the second half, that's a concern. No question about it. Definitely. And then you got to look at some of the things that Jacksonville decided to do last week in terms of the quarterback. Gardner Minshew, I think, is better than Mike Glennon, yet they decided to start Mike Glennon. James Robinson was good enough to play. He really was. If he had to, if that was a playoff game for Jacksonville last week against Chicago, he was going to play James Robinson. He would have been able to play. He was well enough physically to play. But all of those indications tell me that there's a little tank for Trevor theory going on here with the Jacksonville Jaguars. I definitely think that was, at least in terms of some of the coaching decisions, some of the management decisions here going into this one. But now they're locked into the number 1 overall pick. So maybe they go out there and give it a good effort here in their final game of the season. Now that we know they're going to get the number 1 overall pick, and now that we know they're going to be able to take Trevor Lawrence here with this number 1 overall pick. Yeah, Jansen, they already have the number 1 overall pick guaranteed. They're locked into it now. So there is reason now. If you want to go out, give an effort here, you can. I don't think it's going to matter. I mean, I don't expect them to win this game. It's a bad matchup for Jacksonville. We'll have to wait and see how their offense does. But, the Colts defense has not been the Colts defense that I think a lot of people thought it was early in the season. Look at the way they coughed up the lead against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's offense had been sputtering for weeks, and all of a sudden they shred the Colts defense in the second half. Ben Roethlisberger found his deep ball and his deep passing attack again last week against the Colts defense, which everybody was raving about early in the season. I think now we figured out the Colts defense is okay. It's not great. This is not an elite defense. It's not what people were saying about the Colts defense early in the season. Question is, can Jacksonville do anything offensively here in this game against them? We'll have to wait and see who's in the lineup here for the Jaguars. It looks like James Robinson's still going to be out. DJ Chark is questionable. Where does Doug Marrone decide to go in terms of the starting quarterback? Looks like Mike Glennon is going to retain the starting quarterback job here for Jacksonville. They did put up points and move the ball in the first half, but they didn't do anything in the second half. The question is, what do they do here against the Colts? I think they could find some points in this game. I don't think you're going to need much from Jacksonville offensively for this game to go over the total. That is the bet I like in this game. It's over 49.5 with the Jaguars and the Colts. I think Indy can hang 38-45 in this game against this Jacksonville defense. I really think so. Phillip Rivers in the offense, they do not get any pass rush on opposing quarterbacks, Jacksonville. They don't stop the run. Phillip Rivers is going to have a running game that works. He is not going to have anybody coming close to him in terms of any sort of pass rush from this Jacksonville defense. That's when Phillip Rivers can carve you up, when he's got all the pieces in place to be successful. When he doesn't have the run game working, when he doesn't have the offensive line to overwhelm and keep the pass rush away, that's when Phillip Rivers turns into a mistake waiting to happen. I don't expect that to be the case here in this game against Jacksonville. They don't stop the run. They don't get a pass rush. This should be name whatever amount of points you want if you're the Indianapolis Colts in this game against Jacksonville. I would look toward the over here, 49.5, a Colts team total over. I wouldn't talk anybody out of that bet as well, but this should be a big offensive explosiveness, big offensive explosion type of performance here from the Colts. So Colts team total over and Colts Jaguars over the full game total 49.5. I like both of those in that game. We've got Green Bay, Chicago now. We've got the Packers 5.5-point road favorites at Soldier Field. Total 51 in this game. This is another overplay for me. Chicago overs, I'm going to keep on rocking with it. It's been cashing for me now the last few weeks in a row consistently, and I just keep on sticking with it. I see no reason to deviate from that game plan and from that strategy. You're seeing the Bears offense spring to life the last few weeks. Bill Lazor is letting Mitch be Mitch in terms of getting out of the pocket, making plays, running with the football, being allowed to throw in bootleg situations outside of the pocket. I don't know what took Chicago so long to allow Mitch Trubisky to direct the offense in this fashion, but finally they're allowing him to do it, and he's having his best success of the season doing so. Granted, they've played a weak slate of defenses. I fully get that. 30. They scored 30 against Detroit, 36 against Houston, 33 against Minnesota, 41 last week against Jacksonville. Green Bay's defense is going to be a lot better than those, but they did score 25, Mitch Trubisky and the Bears, at Lambeau Field against the Packers earlier this season, a 41-25 loss. I think you're going to see Chicago have a chance to get to that level, 24, 28 points. I like what I'm seeing from their offense. On the flip side, Green Bay, their offense is rolling right now. Just week in and week out, Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams continues to be just this unbelievable combination, quarterback to wide receiver. It's really fun to watch. The chemistry, the timing that they have, to the two of them, Rodgers and Devontae Adams. It's really, really something to behold. I think they're going to move the ball successfully. That's the one thing you have to look at, too, with Green Bay and Chicago. Past meetings, you look at Green Bay, they've scored. They've had a pretty good run of it here against the Bears. They've been able as well to put up points, including 41 earlier this season. And, of course, Green Bay's not laying down. Green Bay wants this one. There's obviously Chicago's playing for their playoff lives here, no question. The Bears, are once left for dead. They've played great football since then. They control their own destiny. They can clinch a playoff spot here by beating Green Bay. They can, again, that's all they need to do is just win. They don't have to worry about anybody else helping them out. They beat Green Bay. They are in. Simple as that for Chicago. So Jansen's saying I like the Bears plus the points. Yeah, I would not go against Chicago here, especially getting 5.5 as a home underdog here. I lean Chicago, but I like the over, the total, a little bit more, because Green Bay's talking like, hey, we want that number one seed. We want it. We need it. We want to be able to host the playoff games and maybe have a chance to host the NFC title game here at Lambeau. This is a Green Bay team that for years they've had to start their playoff trek on the road. They're sick of doing that. The number one seed means a lot to them. I would expect them here to really play this game like it is a playoff game and come out and want to get the victory here as well. So you got two teams where motivation won't be an issue. I do lean a little to Chicago here. They, again, have been finding ways, winning games and covering numbers as of late, on a run in that regard. Chicago, 3 straight wins, 3 straight point spread covers. Lean Chicago, but I like the over 51 here in this game a little bit more than the side. We've got Tennessee and Houston here. Tennessee, 7.5 point road favorites, 56 the total. I'm going to be another over here for me. We're getting to the part of the card now where I like a lot of high-scoring games to unfold. This is another one. I think we get points. I mean, Tennessee's going to do whatever they want against Houston's defense, just like Cincinnati. Like you saw Cincinnati last week against this Houston Texans defense. You saw Cincinnati, guys. This isn't, Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. This isn't the Saints offense. This isn't Josh Allen and the Bills offense. This is Brandon Allen and the Bengals, a backup quarterback, 37 points allowed to the Cincinnati Bengals last week. Absolutely atrocious. They've got 8 starters on defense out. This is definitely Tennessee 30s, if not 40s, all by themselves in this game. It has to be. With their offense, with Derrick Henry, with Tannehill in the passing game. Remember, they struggled to deal with the snow and the elements in Green Bay last Sunday night. I think it is a big bounce back performance from the Titans offense here in this game against this Houston team. You've got J.J. Watt talking about, we need to show up in these games and play hard. People are investing their money. It's almost like he threw his teammates under the bus, saying, we suck. Well, you're part of the thing that sucks too about the team, JJ. You haven't had that impact, getting to the quarterback like you have in years past. You've been an injury-riddled mess for the last couple of years. And then he's talking about, how the whole team is just brutal. And I don't think that is a post-game press conference moment for J.J. Watt that is a rally the troops for the Houston Texans moment here. I don't. And look, it's a lot of points to lay with Tennessee on the road. We know Tennessee's defense is still an issue. Showed it again last week against against Green Bay. But I think Tennessee will win the game. I think Tennessee's probably a decent teaser down to -1.5. I don't really want to lay 7.5 with them, but I think they would win the game against Houston. Bring it down to 1.5. Like Houston, again, terrible run defense. That's trouble against Derrick Henry and the Titans. No pass rush, just like what we talked about with Cincinnati. This is going to be, I think, a big offensive day. Huge offensive day. Like Texans said, Gio Bernard and Samaje Perine are running and busting out big run plays down the field against the Texans last week for the Bengals. What on earth could Derrick Henry do? If I shudder to think what Derrick Henry could do to this Civ defense after the running backs of Cincinnati last week carved up this Houston defense. So I lean to Tennessee. I like Tennessee in a teaser, and even at 56, I do like the total. Look, Deshaun Watson and the Texans offense is still fine. They're still finding ways. The Texans aren't going to stop Tennessee at all in this game. There's no doubt. But despite Deshaun Watson having injuries galore, and offensive line issues at times this year, I think they're going to light up this bad Tennessee secondary. And Deshaun Watson will be able to lead Tennessee to a bunch of points as well in this game because that has not been the issue for Watson in recent weeks. So again, the total is extremely high, 56, and I still like it over the total. I think 31-28 Tennessee or 38-21 Tennessee. That to me is the score that makes sense. Maybe 38-21, 38-27, 38-24, 38-28, something like that is what I could see this final score being with Houston and Tennessee. I like the over. Tennessee maybe in a teaser, something I will look at as well. New Orleans and Carolina, we've got the Saints, 6.5 point road favorites here, 47.5, 48 the total in this game. Of course, Green Bay and Chicago are playing at the exact same time as this game, so there's really no scheduling edge here for the Saints. They're going to know exactly what's going on at the same time with Green Bay. Of course, if Green Bay beats Chicago, then the Saints are alive to win the number 1 seed in the NFC. But if Chicago, or I should say, if Green Bay loses to Chicago, New Orleans is then alive for the NFC's number 1 seed. But again, that's a big if. They'll be going on at the same time. I think the Saints will take the field thinking, we've got a shot at least still to be the number 1 seed in the NFC going into this game against Carolina. We'll have to wait and see how it unfolds. I don't know if I want to lay 6.5 on the road here with New Orleans, even if they've still got that shot to be the number 1 seed here in the NFC for a couple of reasons. The defense is losing guys to injury at an alarming rate all of a sudden again on this New Orleans defense, and saw signs of them losing artillery on that side of the football last week against the Vikings. I mean, they had a really bad defensive game against Minnesota. They only beat the Vikings because they outscored the Vikings on Christmas Day. Teddy Bridgewater and the Carolina Panthers are probably going to have to score some points here. They're really poor on that side, on the defensive side of the football. They have problems in the secondary. The pass rush for Carolina has been solid, but they've been really protecting Drew Brees well since he's come back. It's probably still going to be difficult for Carolina's defense against this Saints offense. Now, on the flip side, I think the key in this game is what do you get from Carolina's offense? Their defense definitely struggled against the Vikings. We'll have to, and let's not forget, earlier this season, Carolina played New Orleans very tough. They were 7.5 point underdogs in the Superdome, and that game went right down to the wire. 3-point victory for the New Orleans Saints. Carolina played the Saints tough in the first meeting this season between these two teams back in Week 7. The game was decided on a missed field goal at the end that could have tied the game for Carolina. Obviously, Christian McCaffrey's already been ruled out. It looks like Mike Davis as well may not play for Carolina as well. I still think Carolina can move the ball because, again, you've got the Saints now with injuries mounting a little bit on the defensive side of the football. Let me just get an update for you on that because these are key players right now for New Orleans on defense that could be missing this game for them here against Carolina, and that could be significant. Teddy Bridgewater, we saw last week against a pretty good Washington defense. He had a real solid game, was able to make some plays down the field. And if the Saints defense, due to injuries, is compromised a little bit, that could be an issue for them going into this game here against Carolina. So I'd be a little bit hesitant to lay 6.5 here on the road with the New Orleans Saints in this game. I don't know if I get to the Carolina side taking the 6.5 with them either. But there are some injuries that would concern me here for New Orleans going into this game. This is a game I would lean over the total with. We did see high-scoring affair in the first meeting between these two teams. And again, with this New Orleans team on the defensive side, look at the injuries. Malcolm Brown, Jalen Dalton on the defensive line. You're looking at Patrick Robinson in the secondary, questionable. The big one is Quan Alexander for sure, linebacker. In fact, they brought him in here to bolster that linebacking core. Tore his Achilles last week, and now he's out indefinitely for the Saints. That's the significant injury for them on that side of the football. That's a concern. I would lean a little bit over the total in this game. I don't like it as much as some of the other overs, but total 47.5. I'd lean a little bit in that direction with the Saints Panthers over 47.5. All right, we've got the Chargers taking on the Chiefs. LA Chargers, 3.5-point road favorites. No, you're not seeing things. Chargers are actually 3.5-point road favorites at Kansas City. The total 44, and Kansas City sitting everybody pretty much, including Patrick Mahomes. That's why you see the Chargers lay in the 3.5. And I still don't want to back the Chargers. I can't lay 3.5 with the Chargers. I can't. I don't care that the Chiefs have locked up the number 1 seed in the AFC and are going to be sitting pretty much all their starters. I am not going to be laying points on the road with the Chargers. I just will not do it. It's just fascinating to see what we're going to get. Chad Henne, again, he's not great by any stretch of the imagination, but we're definitely going to see mostly backups here. And Andy Reid, by the way, when his teams don't have anything to play for in Week 17, he's got a track record of sitting key players. So I definitely think we're going to see that more off here in this one. To me, the Chargers are the only side I could look to, but laying 3.5 on the road, I don't know. Something is just bothering me about that. I don't know what the Chiefs are going to do on offense because, Chad Henne, is obviously not at all the kind of quarterback here that Patrick Mahomes is. He's not going to have as the weapons that Patrick Mahomes usually has to work with. So for me, it's Chargers or pass, but at minus 3.5 on the road, I just think I might pass instead of worrying about what could the Chargers lose to a Kansas City team with backups playing? Nothing with an Anthony Lynn coach team. Honestly would shock me. Seattle and San Francisco. We've got the Seahawks 6.5 point road favorites in this game. 46 the total. San Francisco has not rolled over yet this season. I thought the way things were going for them, they had a really, really bad loss against Dallas. I was really starting to think that this team was tapping out. The season was almost over for them and going in the wrong direction. And then sure enough, they go to Arizona last week and have an outstanding game, especially on defense against Kyler Murray and the Cardinals last week. So I give San Francisco a lot of credit. And look, they played hard, played with passion, played with intensity and effort last week against Arizona, a division rival. I expect them to bring it here against Seattle, and at least try to spoil Seattle's chances here to clinch the division here with the Seahawks here in this one. Seattle, very impressive performance against the Rams. Now, Jared Goff, I think, kind of just flushed the Rams' chances of winning that game down the toilet last week. He was absolutely pitiful with decision-making, with a lot of his throws. But you give Seattle's defense credit. Seattle's defense ain't anywhere close to the level they were early. Remember, early in the season, they were really struggling on that side of the football, weren't getting many stops, were struggling to get off the field. You're seeing a completely different level of defense right now from the Seahawks. And if the Seahawks can bring that kind of defense in the playoffs, and it's funny because the defense has gotten a lot better, and actually the offense has not been quite as explosive lately, but still, you got Russell Wilson. You now have a pretty good, solid, improving defense to go with it. Could be a dangerous team come playoff time. I'm not going to be involved in this game either way. Not going to get in Seattle's way. But San Francisco, again, I learned my lesson. I took Arizona last week. I was worried that San Francisco's kind of tapping out on the season, might mail it in. They did not. And they played a great game, dominated in an impressive win against Arizona. And I think they're going to show up here, play hard, and try to play spoiler. So it's a game I'm not going to get involved in. It's a pass for me. And say what you will about C.J. Beathard. Not a great quarterback, but he's sure as hell a lot better than Nick Mullins. I don't think there's any debate whatsoever about that. He at least gives them a better chance for success than Nick Mullins in this game. Yes, Jansen, the under, 100%. 100% the under. I don't love unders. I don't do well with betting unders. That's why I stay away from them. But matchup-wise, style-wise, with the way these two teams are trending in terms of current form, and the way the 49ers defense stepped up and smothered Arizona last week, I could see this game staying under the total of 46, no question. Las Vegas and Denver, we've got the Raiders, 2.5 3-point road favorites. The total 51 in this game between these two teams. Look, I'm gonna lean a little bit to Denver here. I don't love it. Denver's just been such a disaster. I understand that, but where's the motivation for Las Vegas? I mean, just a gutting loss last week against Miami. That just, it's like rips your heart out of your stomach. A loss like that. Sickening. They had it won. They had it wrapped up with that drive they put together. And then all of a sudden, next thing you know, down the field goes Ryan Fitzpatrick, aided by a face mask penalty. And next thing you know, in the end zone, touchdown or field goal for the Miami Dolphins to win the game when it looked like they were done with 40 seconds to go. No timeouts. You're not supposed to go down the field and be able to put it yourself in field goal range to win the game. Just a brutal loss for Las Vegas. Terrible. I don't think I don't know. Well, they might, because Denver's no great shakes. Denver's got no secondary. It's banged up. It's injury riddled. They've got Bradley Chubb didn't play last week. That defense can't stop anybody. And Las Vegas, they can still put up points offensively. So that's the concern if you're backing Denver, but it's a lesser of two evils game for me. And for me, the lesser of two evils is the Denver side in this one. I don't know if Las Vegas gets themselves up off the mat following that game last week. That was a brutal loss. That was a terrible, hideous way to end your season and get knocked out of the playoffs. Awful way to end it for this Las Vegas Raiders team. I don't know if they all of a sudden show up for this now suddenly meaningless finale against Denver on the road. So at 2.5, 3 with Denver as a slight home underdog, I'll lean a little bit to the Denver side in this one. And I'll lean over the total as well. Denver's defense continues to have trouble. And I don't trust Las Vegas's defense. But again, if Las Vegas doesn't show up, you could even see their offense fall flat in this game if their heads aren't in it. So I would probably just rather go with the Denver side, if anything, in that game. Arizona, LA Rams. Man, is there a lot to talk about with this game. Two teams needing the victory to solidify their playoff spots. Arizona, 3-point favorites, 40.5 the total. Now for Arizona, there's a lot that has to go right for them. They need to win this game, and they need Chicago to lose to Green Bay. That's what has to happen for this Arizona Cardinals team in this game against on Sunday for them to get into the playoffs. Kyler Murray looks like he is going to be playing for Arizona. There was some big-time concerns that his injury that he sustained last week against San Francisco might keep him out of this game, but he practiced in full yesterday for the Cardinals. It looks like he is a good sign that even though he's got that lower leg injury that he suffered last week, he's going to be able to play and suit up for Arizona. The same cannot be said about Jared Goff, who is, I think, a little bit soft, to be honest with you. Whining and complaining last week about his thumb injury. I understand he needed surgery on it. I get it. But, I don't know. Just to me, that pain threshold for Jared Goff, it's not there with him. He's not got one of those guys that he's going to do whatever he can to play through pain, find a way to keep on going. And I think the teammates, actually, for the Rams, kind of lost some respect from him with the way he sort of took himself out of that game. Checked out, really. Of that game last week, and a bad performance as well from him in that loss against the Seattle Seahawks. So that means making his first ever NFL start with Jared Goff out. John Wolford, who's a quarterback at the Wake Forest Demon Deacons in college, played a little bit in the Alliance Football League, AAF, when it was around. So he's played a little bit and started a little bit in terms of a professional football level. But again, that was the AAF when he started. This is going to be his first NFL start, when the talent and the speed that opposing defenses have is a lot better than it is in the Alliance Football League. However, you know what? I'll say this about John Wolford. Yes, it's his first NFL start. Nobody knows how he's going to do. He wasn't expected to be in this situation. He's all of a sudden having to play in a game where the Rams, need to win to at least ensure themselves of being in the playoffs. And that's a concern. And he's got, issues a little bit in terms of, offensive line going into this game. They struggled a little bit against Seattle. There's issues with John Wolford, no question. But Sean McVay is a really, really sharp offensive mind for the most part. Can he put an offensive game plan, design an offensive game plan to try to accentuate what John Wolford does well and try to put him in the best position to succeed? I think he could, because Sean McVay is one of those coaches that can do that. So I don't think all is lost for the LA Rams with Wolford at quarterback. The Rams still have a very good defense. They hung in there for as long as they could against Russell Wilson and the Seahawks, but the offense was just not able to stay on the field. I think the defense got a little bit tired in the second half last week against Seattle as that game went on. And to Jansen's point in the chat saying, I don't trust the Cards anymore, I'm right there with you. I don't trust them anymore. I lost with them last week against San Francisco. They were awful on both sides of the football. I'm waiting to see if we get 3.5 starting to pop up here on Arizona, because it's moved to 3 with the news that Kyler Murray is going to play. But his offensive line struggled last week against the Niners, and the Rams have an even better defensive front with Leonard Floyd, and of course Aaron Donald. That could be an even bigger challenge for Arizona's offensive line to protect for Murray against the Rams here. That's number one. And remember, the Rams dominated Arizona earlier this season in Arizona. And second of all, the defense for Arizona has been a little bit suspect, and they've got a couple of injuries as well that you'd be a little bit concerned about going into this game. So for me, I would not be on the Arizona side. I don't know if I'm going to bet the Rams. I'm leaning that way, though. And more than anything, I'm looking to see if this starts to show as Arizona minus 3.5 across the board. I think there's at least a reasonable chance we might see that. And we might see Arizona in a spot where they might end up being 3.5-point road favorites here by the time this game kicks off, because it's 3 with juice in a lot of spots. And I'm already seeing that it could move to 3.5 here at some books. So I'm leaning Rams right now. I think even with John Wolford, Sean McVay is the kind of coach and offensive mind to put him in the best position to succeed. So right now, leaning to the LA Rams here, plus the points against Arizona. We wrap it up now with the final game of the NFL regular season, Sunday Night Football, Washington football team, Philadelphia Eagles, Washington 2-point favorites, 43.5 the total in this game. I like the over a little bit here. Actually, 43.5. I lean over the total in this game. I think Taylor Heineke, if he plays, and again, they've been waiting to see if Alex Smith is going to be cleared to play. They were hoping he would be back last week against Carolina. And then, of course, Ron Rivera had no choice. He had to begrudgingly had to go to Dwayne Haskins, who was awful, who was brutal, and, of course, ends up getting released on Monday. He didn't participate in practice yesterday, Alex Smith. It's looking more and more like it's Taylor Heineke at quarterback, the Old Dominion product, who finished the game last week against Carolina. He was with the first-team offense in practice yesterday for Washington. So I'm expecting him to be good to go. And I think he's capable. He's got some mobility. He's going to have a full week of practice now. He can make some plays. I think he's got a decent arm. I'm not saying he's a great quarterback, but he can move. He's going to be coached up this week. He's got a full week of practice. This Philly defense stinks. They're still banged up in the secondary. The defensive line now, losing Fletcher Cox. They can't get the same pass rush with Andy Dalton. Nobody laid a finger on Andy Dalton the minute Fletcher Cox got injured last week for the Eagles against Dallas. I think there's going to be some opportunity for Taylor Heineke to be productive at quarterback. I'm not saying he's going to light it up, but I think he can move the offense. I think he can lead the unit, and I think he can lead Washington to be able to make some plays here down the field against this Philadelphia secondary. On the flip side, Washington's defense, excellent. No question about that. But they did give up some plays last week. And I think the Washington defense might, because they've been on the field for so much this season, because their offense has been really, really lackluster, they look like they could be starting to show signs of wearing down late in the season. And when you're wearing down a little bit physically, it could be a little bit of trouble having to deal with a mobile quarterback on the other side in Jalen Hurts for the Philadelphia Eagles here in this game. Philadelphia, yeah, disappointed that they are not going to be in the playoffs. But will they relish the opportunity to maybe play spoiler? I think there's a chance they might. I don't know if the Eagles are going to completely roll over in this game just because they got eliminated last week. I think there's still some incentive here maybe to, knock Washington out, potentially. Well, they would knock Washington out because if Washington loses, they're done. The winner of Dallas and the New York Giants is getting in as the NFC East Division champ and into the playoffs if Washington loses. Washington has to win. They control their own destiny, but they have to win this game. There is no path to the playoffs for the Washington football team if they lose this game. So the question is Philadelphia going to be that excited to play spoiler here on Sunday Night Football? I would not completely rule out that they won't, that they'll not roll over here. I think they might show up here and try to give Washington everything they can handle. But I like Heineke. I think Heineke is capable. Look, Heineke is going to be better for this offense than Haskins. He can't be worse. And I think he's going to be better. And I think they'll move the ball. And Philadelphia's defense is still in a really bad way with injuries. I think they score. I think Philly can do enough on offense to contribute to the scoreboard and the scoring in this game as well. So I'm going to go over 43 and a half at less than a field goal. I guess I'd lean to Washington here. But I wouldn't lay much more than this. And if we see a +3 or +3.5, maybe I'm tempted by Philly. Not now at the current number. But I do lean over the total here, 43 and a half. That to me is the way I would be looking to bet this game because I think Taylor Heineke, I'm not going to say he's going to be great. I'm not going to say he's going to light it up, but he's a capable guy. He's a capable quarterback, can move in the pocket, can throws a decent ball, has a bad defense that he's facing on the other side, an injury-riddled Philadelphia defense as well. I think he can go out there and make plays here in this game. That's my opinion on Taylor Heineke. I think Washington's offense can function at a reasonable level with him at quarterback. So I like the over at a low number. Again, 43 and a half, low number, 24-20, 24-21. That kind of final score cashes an over ticket in this game. And I think there's a good chance of that happening. So I definitely like over the total here, Philly, Washington on Sunday Night Football. All right, there we go. That is the NFL Week 17 card. As I mentioned, there's a lot to think about, a lot to consider. It is the proverbial minefield of betting every year when you talk NFL Week 17. So thanks to everyone for tuning in. Everybody in the chat that joined me here today, Bama Boy, Paco Healy, Gerald Jones, Alex Ramirez, Jansen, Michael Hunter, Ron Crawford, Stephen Ocho, Andrew G., Beach Boss, Adonis Iverson, everybody, thank you. Happy New Year. All the best in 2021. Next year has to be better than 2020. It can't be any worse. Happy New Year, everybody. Whatever you decide to do with NFL Week 17, make sure you tread lightly. That's my best advice. Only a few spots here. I mean, right now, here's my NFL Week 17 leans and potential card right now. Dallas Giants pass, Pittsburgh Cleveland pass, Tennessee Houston over, New Orleans Carolina maybe the over. I do like the Jets plus the points, Minnesota Detroit pass, Tampa Bay -6.5, maybe Tampa Bay in a teaser as well. Baltimore Cincy over, Miami Buffalo pass, Jacksonville Indy probably the over, Green Bay Chicago probably the over with a lean to Chicago. New Orleans Carolina, as I mentioned, maybe the over. Chargers Kansas City pass, Seattle San Francisco pass, Las Vegas Denver. It's probably going to be a pass, but slight lean to Denver, slight lean to the Rams, but not sure I bet that. And the Washington Philadelphia Sunday Night Football over as well. So that's what I'm looking at right now with the NFL Week 17 card taking place. So again, Happy New Year, everybody. Stay safe, stay healthy. Thanks for watching everything here on Pub Sports Radio, not just my shows, but every show that takes place here on the channel. Appreciate the support. Pub Sports Radio, we're looking forward to even bigger and better things in 2021. Happy New Year. Thanks for watching Ian Cameron's Football Frenzy. And again, Ian Cameron's Football Frenzy isn't done. We're going to be keep doing shows in January, getting you ready for every week during the NFL playoffs. Looking forward to that. And looking forward to another great year of shows right here on Pub Sports Radio. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. Happy New Year, everybody. Best wishes in 2021. And we'll see you again next Thursday in the new year of 2021. Next Thursday, 1 p.m. Eastern time for the next edition of Pub Sports Radio, Ian Cameron's Football Frenzy. Happy New Year, everybody. We'll see you in 2021.